Hey, welcome to our channel. Make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss our latest content.
I had always been a simple man. That's not an excuse. It's just a fact, a foundation. My life was built on a series of quiet, predictable pillars. I worked in logistics, a job of patterns and pathways. My commute was 25 minutes, door to door, the same route, every single day. I'd stop at the same bakery on the corner of Elm and 3rd, the one with the bell that jingled just so, and buy the same sourdough loaf. These things weren't boring to me. They were anchors. In a world that felt increasingly chaotic, my routine was a small kingdom where I was in complete control. And the heart of that kingdom was Lorelei, my wife of 7 years. She was a practical woman, organized, affectionate in her own, quiet, steady way. Her love wasn't in grand pronouncements or dramatic gestures. It was in the details. A text message at 2 p.m. sharp. Don't forget to drink some water, Silas. The coffee she'd have ready when I came downstairs, brewed with exactly 1.5 spoonfuls of sugar. The way she'd sit next to me on the couch, her leg pressed against mine, even when I was watching some dumb action movie that I knew bored her to tears. For a long time. A very long time. All of that was enough. For both of us. Our marriage wasn't a Hollywood romance. It was something quieter. Something real. There was a harmony to it. We had our arguments, of course. Who doesn't? But we talked. We never yelled, never insulted. When we traveled, we took few pictures. We were too busy, living, experiencing the moment instead of trying to document it for an audience that didn't exist. At home, we laughed at the same stupid jokes. We'd debate which series to binge watch next. On cold nights, we'd sleep tangled together. I loved that ordinary, adventureless life, filled with the beautiful consistency of us. For me, it was the perfect definition of happiness, which is why that Thursday night made no sense. It broke the logic of the world I thought I knew, the life I thought I was living. We sat down for dinner, just like we always did. She'd made my favorite, grilled chicken, rice pilaf, sauteed asparagus. Simple, perfect. There was a candle lit in the center of the table. Not for romance. Not really. The overhead light in the kitchen had burned out a few days ago, and I hadn't gotten around to fixing it. The setting was the same, as always. Familiar. Safe. And perhaps that's why her question landed like a silent bomb. I had just taken the first bite. The chicken was juicy. The asparagus had that perfect snap. I was chewing, lost in that simple pleasure. When she spoke, she looked right at me. Her eyes were calm. As calm as someone asking for the time. Silas, she said, her voice even. Have you ever thought about opening our marriage? My fork slipped from my fingers. It hit the plate with a sharp clink that seemed to echo in the sudden, vast silence of the room. I just stared at her, trying to process the words, trying to understand if I'd heard her correctly. This had to be a joke, some kind of weird test I didn't understand, but her expression held no hint of humor. Her voice had no tremor of hesitation. She wasn't waiting for a laugh. She was waiting for an answer. I tried to steer it back to safety. Back to our world. I made some lame joke about those old movies with the swinging couples, hoping she'd laugh, that she'd roll her eyes and say, "Oh, Silas, of course I'm kidding." The laugh never came. Lorelei just sat there, her eyes fixed on mine, as if she had just asked to pass the salt. As if this were the most natural, logical thing in the world. Where did this come from? I stammered. Did someone at work say something? Are you reading some book about this? She shrugged. A small, dismissive gesture. I've just been thinking about it. Some friends have mentioned it. And online, there are forums. Lots of stories about happy couples who made this choice. Happy couples. The words bounced around in my head, refusing to stick. I couldn't believe this conversation was happening. Here, now, in our kitchen. Between a sip of iced tea and a bite of rice, my heart started to beat faster. Not a panic attack, not yet, but the frantic thumping of an animal thrown into a strange, unfamiliar cage. I tried to argue, to reason. Lorelei, our love, it's always been based on us. On exclusivity, on taking care of each other. And it still is, she countered, her voice infuriatingly calm. I still love you, I want to be with you, but I feel this need to rediscover myself, to experience new things. She talked about freedom. About trust, beyond possession. About a deeper connection that wasn't defined by rules. I heard the words, but they were muffled, distorted, passing through a thick fog of disbelief. All I could feel was a cold, hollow space growing in my chest. It wasn't just jealousy, it was something deeper, something worse. It was the feeling of not recognizing the person sitting right in front of me. This Lorelei. So rational, so convinced, so detached. She was a stranger. That night, I slept on the couch. I told her my back was acting up, that I needed the space. It was a lie. The truth was, I couldn't look at her. I couldn't lie next to her and pretend that the foundation of our world hadn't just cracked wide open. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling. The familiar shadows of the branches outside now looked like jagged claws on the plaster. My mind spun in circles, replaying the conversation, replaying the last few weeks, months, years. Were there signs? Had I missed something? Had she been distant? No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find a single concrete clue. Just a marriage that had seemed whole, and suddenly, it was broken in a way I didn't know how to fix. In the days that followed, an even stranger thing happened. Lorelei acted as if nothing had happened. She woke up at the same time. She prepared the same coffee, with 1.5 spoonfuls of sugar. She gave me the same quick kiss on the forehead before she left for work. But everything was different. I started to notice things. Small things. Or maybe they were there all along, and I had just been blind to them. She started wearing new clothes. Styles I'd never seen on her. The makeup she wore to go out was heavier, more deliberate. She started going out with friends more often. Hours would pass with her glued to her phone, a small, private smile playing on her lips. When I'd ask about her day, her answers became vague, automatic. It was fine. Just busy. Nothing much. I tried to pretend it was okay. That this was just a phase, a strange idea she would eventually forget. But deep down, the unease was spreading through me like rust on steel, corroding everything. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, was the doubt, the constant, gnawing question that kept me up at night. Had I already lost her, and tonight was just the official announcement? A part of me wanted to talk again, to try and understand, to beg her to reconsider. But another part of me, the part that was already wounded, felt that any effort would be useless. What do you do when the person you love seems to have crossed an invisible line, and is smiling at you from the other side, as if it's the most normal thing in the world? I asked myself that every single day, with my breath caught in my chest, with the sickening feeling that I was being gently, politely, pushed out of my own marriage. She hadn't waited for my permission to open the door. She had already walked through it. The suspicion grew. It started as a low hum in the back of my mind, and soon it became a constant, deafening noise. Every part of her daily routine now seemed alien. The way she'd smile at her phone, a secret glow on her face, the new rush she had when getting ready, even just for a trip to the grocery store. Her weekend disappearances now came with flimsy excuses. A trial Pilates class, a new book club, a reunion with high school friends she hadn't mentioned in years. Something inside me was screaming that it was all a lie. I didn't want to be that guy, the snooping husband, the man who turns love into surveillance. But there comes a point when ignoring the signs hurts more than facing the truth, and that moment came on a Saturday afternoon. Lorelei had gone out for a supposed coffee with a new coworker. I was home alone, trying to lose myself in chores. Anything to quiet my mind. I washed the dishes, swept the garage, organized a stack of old mail, but my mind kept spinning, that feeling of something buzzing in the air, just about to explode. That's when I saw it. Her laptop, sitting on the living room table, still on. The screen was asleep, but a single notification light pulsed gently. That tiny, pulsing light was enough to make my stomach drop to the floor. I approached it hesitantly, as if the device itself might cry out and betray me. There was no password. She always used to say, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. I clicked the trackpad, slowly, not even sure what I was looking for. I opened the web browser, and the history revealed more than I was ready to see. Private forums with names I didn't recognize. Threads about sexual freedom, experiences with multiple partners. Links to discrete social events with locations and passwords. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my hands from shaking. But the worst was yet to come. In one of the open tabs, there was an active conversation. The last message had been sent less than an hour ago, while I was in the garage, sweeping dust. It was with a man named Reese. There was no formality between them, no shyness. The messages were filled with an intimacy that felt like a physical blow, a complicity that I thought belonged only to us. Lorelei, my Lorelei, talked about their last meeting. She complimented details about him that I couldn't even imagine her saying out loud. They were planning another meeting for the following week, complete with a hotel entry code and the fake name she would use. And between the messages, there were emojis, kissing faces, winks. And in the middle of it all, 2 photos. One was of her, in the mirror, wearing lingerie I had never seen before. The other was of him, showing part of his face and his naked torso, with a provocative caption underneath. I slammed the laptop shut. The click of the plastic was like a gunshot in the silent room. My hands were trembling uncontrollably now. I sank onto the couch, staring at the floor, the pattern of the rug swimming before my eyes. I was trying to wake up. This had to be a nightmare. It had to be. But it was real. The words, the images, the confessions. All of it. She was already living the new life she had proposed. The request to open the marriage, it wasn't a question about the future. It was a belated justification for what she was already doing. Behind my back, my mind raced. My breathing became shallow. How long? How long had this been going on? How many secret meetings had she gone to while I sat here, waiting for her, trusting her? Every excuse she'd ever given flashed through my mind. Every night she said she was too tired to talk. Every reunion with old friends. Those nights now had a name, a face, an address. The betrayal wasn't just physical. That almost felt secondary. It was the time, the energy, the desire she had chosen to give to someone else, while pretending everything was normal at home. The quiet, steady woman I loved was a phantom, a character she played. And I had been her fool. When Lorelei came home hours later, she found me sitting in the dark. I was at the dining room table, the unlit candle between us. I didn't look up when she came in. "Silas, are you okay? Why are all the lights off?" she asked, her voice light, cheerful. The sound of it made my skin crawl. I finally looked at her. "We need to talk." She set her bag down slowly, sensing the shift in the air, that icy calm in my voice. She knew. I didn't waste time. I didn't build up to it. "Have you been with someone else?" She didn't flinch. She didn't even look surprised. She just bit her lip, crossed her arms, and after a beat of silence that stretched for an eternity, she said, "Yes." Just like that. "Yes," she repeated, as if I hadn't heard. "I've met a few people. I'm exploring my most authentic self. It doesn't diminish what I feel for you." She said it all with a calmness that hurt more than any shouting match ever could, as if she were discussing something light, trivial, like a new hobby she'd picked up. "Many couples go through this," she continued, her voice taking on the tone of a lecturer. "Opening the marriage is a form of evolution. You could try it too, if you wanted. This doesn't have to be the end." I listened, my heart sinking lower with every word. She was handing me a flyer for a new lifestyle, forgetting that on the other side of the table was a man who was shattered, disoriented, trying to understand when his partner, his best friend, had become a complete and utter stranger. "Why didn't you just tell me?" My voice was barely a whisper. "Why the lies? The theater? The double life?" Her answer was the final nail in the coffin. "I was afraid of how you'd react," she said, shrugging again. "I wanted to be sure of what I wanted before I put our marriage at risk." Before I put our marriage at risk. The words hung in the air between us. An impossible, gaping void. The trust, the respect, the complicity. Everything we had spent 7 years building was stained, demolished. And no matter how much she insisted it wasn't betrayal, what I felt was exactly that. Abandonment. I didn't argue anymore. I didn't raise my voice. I had nothing left to say. I just stood up, turned, and walked into the guest room. I closed the door behind me. That night, we slept in separate rooms, not because of a fight, but because we were already 2 strangers sharing the same roof. And in that crushing silence, I realized something. Love doesn't die in a scream. It falls apart in the quiet gaps between conversations, in lies spoken with a calm voice, in glances that drift away. Doubt had finally turned into certainty, and that certainty was about to become a decision. I spent that night dismantling our marriage in my head, piece by painful piece, trying to figure out where the first screw had come loose, when the first gear had started to grind. I found no answers, only a profound, soul-deep exhaustion. And when the morning came, there was no more room for doubt, no more space for hope. What Lorelei had shown me, with her cold calmness, her twisted logic of love and freedom, It was enough. The only thing I needed to do now was act. No more dialogue that would only serve to justify the unjustifiable. No more tears. I got up. I drank a cup of coffee that tasted like ash. And with a heart that felt like it had turned to stone, I picked up my phone. I called Leo, my friend since college, my lawyer. When he answered, I didn't hesitate. My voice came out clean, firm, without a single tremor. Leo, it's me. Start the divorce process. Today. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. He probably expected a long, rambling story. Tears, reconciliations. But I was already past that. Expedite everything, I said. Prepare the documents, handle the paperwork. I'll sign whatever you need me to sign. Silas, are you sure you don't want to? I'm sure. I cut him off. And Leo, don't say anything to her. I won't speak to her about it until everything is ready. No. I hung up the phone and felt something I hadn't expected to feel. Relief. It was a strange, hollow relief, but it was there. It felt like I had just taken off a suit of armor that weighed more than it protected. For the first time in weeks, in months, I felt like I was regaining control of my own life. The pain was still there, of course, a dull, heavy ache in my chest. But there was also a clarity, a sharp, piercing clarity that only comes after you've suffered too much. Lorelei was no longer my wife. And I was no longer the man who waited for her with dinner on the table. Later that day, she came downstairs, already made up. She was wearing a tight dress I didn't recognize, high heels. Her hair was pulled back perfectly. I'm going out with some friends, she said, her voice breezy. Celebrating a birthday. She spoke so naturally, as if she were saying goodbye to a roommate. I didn't flinch. I just looked at her, my eyes empty of expectation. And I said, without a trace of irony or anger, "Have fun," she smiled. A quick, bright smile. Maybe she thought I was starting to accept it, that her little speech was finally being digested. But she didn't know. She didn't know that I had already closed the book. She just hadn't realized she was already a character from a previous chapter. She left, her perfume lingering in the air like a ghost. I stayed in the living room for a few minutes, staring into the void. Then, I went to our bedroom, my bedroom, now, and lay down. I was exhausted. But for the first time in a long time, I was at peace. I picked up my phone to silence the notifications for the night. And that's when a cloud alert popped up. A new file has been synced. A video. I felt nothing. No anger, no urgency, just a detached curiosity. I clicked it. The video started with a laugh I recognized. It was her, Lorelei. At a party, music thumping in the background. Men around her. She was smiling, laughing, a kind of free, unburdened laugh I hadn't heard in years. She danced. She touched. In another cut, she was sitting on some man's lap, drinking from his glass, looking at him with an intimacy that isn't built in one night. The way she let go, the way she moved, it was all so clear. This wasn't a phase, it wasn't an exploration, it was a choice. A parallel life she had embraced with conviction, and with pleasure. I watched for a few moments more, then I paused it, closed the screen. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't sweat. It was as if I already knew what I would see. Seeing it didn't hurt as much as the lies that had come before it. I stood up, drank a glass of water. Nothing more needed to be said. No new scene would change what I had already decided. Lorelei had crossed a line, and I, for the first time in a long, long while, didn't feel lost. I felt free, because there comes a moment when love, no matter how true it once was, dies, suffocated by the choices the other person made without ever considering you. And when that happens, grief is replaced by clarity. And clarity is liberation. The paperwork arrived on a Tuesday morning. The plain manila envelope in the mailbox seemed harmless, but to me, it was the final seal on a story that had already crumbled. I picked it up, took a deep breath, and walked back inside with steady steps. I felt whole, not happy, not yet. But whole. There were no more doubts, no more room for guilt. This was the necessary end. I waited for her. She came home at her usual time. Walked in the door, dropped her bag in the same spot she always did, ran a hand through her hair. "Hey," she said, glancing over at me. "Did you ever fix the internet? It was acting up this morning." Any other day, that casual, domestic question would have twisted my gut. But not today. With that same quiet calmness, I placed the envelope on the dining room table. "Lorelei, sit down, Em." She hesitated. She must have sensed it in the air. The finality. But she's Saturday. I pushed the papers toward her. Here it is, I said. The divorce. You just need to sign. Her eyes widened. She let out a short, disbelieving laugh. Then she crossed her arms. Are you serious, Silas? I just nodded. It's all ready. All it needs is your signature. And you have 2 hours to pack your things and leave this house. She shot up from her chair, her voice suddenly loud, shrill. You can't kick me out of my own house, Silas. We built this together. I stood up too, but I didn't raise my voice. I kept it level, cold as steel. I built this life, while you were out building another one. Now you can go live that life you chose. But it won't be under this roof. Her eyes blazed with fury. You're a monster. An ignorant, backwards man. Life has changed, Silas. People have evolved. Marriages like ours, they don't exist anymore. I took one step closer. My voice dropped even lower, firmer. If you don't leave willingly, I said, meeting her gaze without blinking, I'll send the videos. She froze. What? What videos? The ones you don't even know were saved, I said. The ones from the party. They're all on the cloud. One click, and your parents get them on WhatsApp. Your boss, your friends. She turned pale. All the color drained from her face. Her entire body went rigid, as if all the strings holding her up had been cut. You wouldn't dare, she whispered. You have 1 hour and 50 minutes left. I interrupted, my tone unchanged. Your time is running out. She understood. She finally understood. This wasn't a joke. It wasn't a threat to be negotiated. It was a decision that had already been made. She tried to argue, to flip the script, to make me the cruel one. But I didn't budge. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't give in. And in that moment, she knew she had lost. She went upstairs. I could hear drawers being yanked open, clothes being thrown into a suitcase. She came down 20 minutes later, dragging a bag, her face a mask of stone. She grabbed her keys, her purse, and left without looking back. The door clicked shut, and then, silence. The following weeks were quiet. Lorelei didn't show up, didn't call. The divorce went through without a single complication. I signed the final papers, sent them back, and sat on the porch with a cup of hot coffee in my hands, just like I used to in the good times. Only now, there was something different. Peace. The house felt emptier, yes, but it was a good kind of empty. The absence of weight, the absence of lies. Slowly, I began reclaiming the pieces of myself I had set aside. I started listening to my old music while I cooked again. I resumed my habit of running at the end of the day, feeling the burn in my lungs, the steady rhythm of my feet on the pavement. I even reconnected with old friends I hadn't seen in years. Each gesture was small, but together, they were a fresh start. One Sunday, I sat with my laptop on my lap. I saw the cloud folder was still there. The videos, the photos, everything saved. I thought for a moment about deleting them, wiping the slate clean, but I decided to leave them, not as revenge, not as a weapon, just as proof that even the deepest scars have their place, because what defines a man isn't what he's lost, it's what he chooses to carry forward. And I chose to carry only one thing, my dignity, intact. Lorelei was a chapter in my life. An intense, confusing chapter, full of lessons I never wanted to learn. But now I was writing a new book, page by page, in silence, and in peace. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next.